Hello everyone, my name is Lyrical Gamer and this is a limited palette challenge. Right now I'm just kind of sketching out and I start out with this full body because I thought that's what I wanted and I want to have her hand just like in defeat dropping the wand, but I couldn't portray that confidently because the rest of her body just looked too stiff. It wasn't slack enough, I needed the thing, and then her face wasn't looking right. I ended up scrapping this sketch because it just didn't feel right. I wanted to do something more with the limited palette than just that. And I even had to go look up a reference of Rose's hair that I'd drawn previously. And I put the little reference for the Grimdark in the corner. And so I went pretty far with the sketch because I thought I was going to use it before I decided that I didn't like it really that much. And keep tinkering with it, trying to make myself like it. I just didn't like it. So there, I scrapped it, and now I'm drawing more bodies, trying to figure out a pose for a hair that I will actually really like. And I just keep making stiff bodies the wrong body. So I'm going to pull up some expressions and use those, like I mimic those for her whole body stance. And it's working with intense emotions. So it's got like the shoulders drawn up and the exaggerated eyebrow movement and the exaggerated mouth and eye sizes, because, you know, I do cartoon styles, so it's good for me to actually look at those as a reference instead of trying to look at something realistic and then cartooning it, because I'm beyond the point of needing a realistic reference for most anatomy. There are still a few things anatomy-wise that I will look up, but and I think it's also because there's a disconnect in my brain between real anatomy and cartooning it. So now I'm outlining her with that darkest purple that was on there. By the way, I don't think I mentioned this, but the color palette is called Violent Shadows, and I've had it for 2.5 months-ish sitting on it, waiting to draw it. So here I am drawing it now. So I will link to the palette below if you'd like to use it as well. And if you'd like to use any other palette that comes off of that website, it's a good website. I recommend it for palette challenges. And I kept selecting it, being like, where the hole in the line art? Why is it going through it? Only to realize that I had entire lines missing. I have a few problems with selecting a source, and then I give her a base made of a low opacity version of the dark purple, and then I'm coloring her in with the dark purple as well, even though it's the same color as the lines, because I just wanted to partially emulate the lineless style of Homestuck with just like that part, because I was like, if I go with a lighter color, it's not gonna, like with the headband, it's not gonna really line up well, because it's gonna be like the color of something around her. And then later on, there's also the outline that I give her to separate her from a thing I haven't drawn yet. So I'm just kind of like determining everything, like what color everything should be. Even though I did have the vague idea in mind, so I was cheating it a little bit by not just giving myself an entirely random palette. I will be doing something like that later. So I'm just coloring everything in. It's not exactly like some people might contest my options with canon references, being like, "Oh, what you colored her, the pink parts of her outfit should have been a lighter color, and her skin should have been the darker one." But I liked how it turned out. So here's that dark I was mentioning in the background. So to separate the dark purple of her clothes from the dark purple of that, I start giving her a border made up of every other color on the palette, because I thought it would just blend out nicely. And it's like a hard pixel line, and I kind of tried to blend that out at first, and then I was like, you know what, it looks cool. And I did cheat a little bit there on the tier technically, because but I mean, it's still on palette, it's just a lower opacity version. But you'll notice that she doesn't have any shading at all, and that is because I wanted to stay within the palette, and the tier was going to be the only thing I cheated on, so the darkest purple wouldn't have got any shading, and everything else would have, and it would have just looked really weird. So I just decided to stay in palette, and I also made the Grimdark around her a little bit swooshier, and I extended that outline to go over her wands in the same kind of wispy effect. So there you have it. A limited palette Grimdark Rose Lalonde, which I actually really like a lot. And I hope you guys did too, and I will see you in the next video.